How are you doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another C3 live stream. Once again, I'm your host, John Orlando, and I'm so happy to be here. I will say that unfortunately, our great producer, Sydney, cannot be with us tonight due to some other engagement. So you're going to have to bear with me because I'm not only running the show here. Well, I'm running the show literally and figuratively, I guess you could say. So be patient. Hopefully I don't screw things up. Fingers crossed, I think I got things handled. But nonetheless, my guest who's going to join me to talk about the C Stands For Anthology and to talk about C3 and some of his projects is Mr. Carl Lucas. Carl, there you are. How you doing, man?
Hey, how's it going, John? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. I have thoroughly enjoyed chatting with all of the folks affiliated with C3 and the anthology C Stands For. So I'm going to start off with my question that I've asked everybody, Carl. How'd you get involved with C3?
Okay, so this might be a long story, might be a short story, but basically I was doing the Saturday morning art classes, and it was kind of during COVID. So there wasn't a lot of communication. So I would go every Saturday to CCAD and just go to this little classroom for 2 hours on the weekend and not see anybody, and just go teach my class and go home. But at the end of it, they had a little art show, and then some of the faculty was there, and people were walking around. The parents were there from the class for the kiddos and stuff. I should mention this is grades, it was grades 5 through 6, a younger class. But one of the other teachers there told me they had a comic Discord. I was like, okay, sure. And then I think Cartoon Crossroads was coming up, and they were like, hey, why don't you shoot Sid a message about C3? And I was like, sure. And I did. And here I am. I've been participating in the Discord, posting art at first and kind of lingering. And then now I'm supporting it by giving some art to the anthology.
And here is the Discord information if you wanted to join, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. And I'll put it back up here in a little bit. Well, let's talk here about the anthology. All right, Carl, what's your contribution to C Stands For?
I went with kind of a sci-fi story. I did C is for Celestial. Ooh. So it kind of has a, Neil deGrasse Tyson, the stars and stuff kind of feel to it, but not really. And I kind of really leaned into a lot of manga influences and Japanese RPG artwork. All had the watercolor, and I always wanted to do a watercolor comic. So, why not do it for the anthology?
Okay. And was the decision to jump on this project, was it, I assume it was not a hard decision to make?
Oh, no. I talked to a lot of the people in C3, and I go to the meetings at Brewdog and stuff. I am fairly active with the C3 Comic Book Reading Club, which we just launched, which you can join on the Fable app. And it was pretty easy to just dive right in and be like, okay, here's some pages.
All right. Why should somebody pick up a copy of the anthology? Give me your best sales pitch. Why?
Hey, it's got a bunch of great talent from all over Ohio. It's the who's who of indie underground comics right now. It really is. It's you got myself, you got J.M. Hunter, you got just a huge smorgasbord of artists are all participating in this book, and if you want to support comics and you want to support indie creators, I would support it.
And let's talk about the crowdfunder campaign before we talk more, Carl, about your artistic background and whatnot. Right now, we have, if I remember correctly, just a few $100 away from getting a great page rate for everybody that's in here. And this is where I'm going to miss Sydney a little bit because she has those stats. And so trust me, as of the last one of these, just a couple of days ago, $129 away from hitting that $10 page count. So basically, C Stands For is an anthology where if there's no money that has been raised whatsoever. Every particular person, every particular artist gets at least $5. And then if we raise up to $950, everybody gets $10 for a page rate. $1,550, everyone gets $15 for their page rate. And over that amount, $20 for your page rate. And where does all this money go? Right back to the individuals. Carl, I'm sure you can tell the folks that are watching and listening. It takes a little bit of cash to get started, right? In your comic book endeavors.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to supplies, I feel like a lot of younger people draw on like digital, like an iPad or something. You got to have a scanner. There's all kinds of tools too, and you're always trying to upgrade your arsenal as well. So yeah.
So I misspoke. It wasn't a little bit of cash to get started. It's a lot of cash to get started.
Yeah.
So so that's why this is important, folks. If you love art, no matter if it's comic books or if it's graphic novels or whatever, or zines or whatever, this is a great opportunity to jump on in, support some of these folks like Carl, like all those people that I've talked to, Kelsey and JM and Robert and all those fine folks. So definitely do it. Like I said, I believe we're like $129. I could be wrong on that. I don't have that here, but I thought, if memory serves correct, $129.
Math is hard. I don't think about math. I measure things, but I don't. I need my calculator most of the time.
Now, time out for a minute. You measure things. If I'm not mistaken, that's math, sir.
Is it arithmetic?
What are you, from the 1850s? Oh, you got to have your reading and your arithmetic.
Yeah, I'm giving old school teacher vibes right now.
You need a bow tie and suspenders, and that would definitely.
Yeah. I see Tom Williams wrote in here. He said it's got Carl, and I just want to say Tom's really cool, and he's a huge part of indie comics in Ohio.
Yes,
Tom Williams is indie comics in Ohio. Like he's the man.
Absolutely, yes. Here, we'll show his comment there. There you go. It's got Carl. All right. What more do you need, ladies and gentlemen? But Carl's there.
Tom Williams. We got C3. We got Crowdfundr. We got comic books. What else you want?
There you go. I'm surprised, and I don't know. I'm probably going to open my big mouth. I should just be quiet. But I'm surprised that none of the guests so far has made a C3 PO joke. And that. Yeah, okay. Anyways, maybe that's why, because nobody laughed. Tom says, bust out the butter churn and the proportion wheel. Yes. Okay, let's get back on track here, shall we, Carl? Let's talk a little. What'd you say?
I said cameos galore already.
This is a great episode. I'd love for people to jump on in here.
Yeah,
let's talk about you for a moment. When did you know you wanted to be an artist? Like, can you think back to a time when you're like, yeah, it was this particular event that led me to wanting to be an artist?
You know what? My mom would tell me I never put down a pencil. And I remember she worked as secretary, and she would bring me home all the like 8.5 by 11 paper from her office. And it had like all the business calculations and stats on the back, but I would draw on the other side. And she was like, and it was like never enough paper. It was like I would fill that paper up. And I remember like Batman Forever just came out when I was a kid, and like having like the trading cards in a book, and a note, and they were all organized and stuff of like Jim Carrey as the Riddler and like goofy stuff like that. And I would just draw, I would draw Batman and stuff. And there was that film, what was it? The Phantom. And there was I would make a ripoff character called the Green Phantom, and I made like comics of that. So like it was very like comic book oriented from the start. So like I even if I was making some money or no money, I would always be doing comics. You know what I mean? Like I just have a huge passion for comics and cartoonists and everything about it.
So after high school, did you go to art school?
I did go to an art school, and
Would that be CCAD or would it be a different art school?
No, a lot of people assume that because I'm in Columbus now. A lot of people, but I did go to the Art Institute in Pittsburgh and studied there. Mike Malley was one of my instructors, and he was like one of, I would say, my influences there. I took like a lot of his illustration classes. Another big influence on me at that point was Jeffrey Condren. He would take time to read my comics outside of class. Like he'd be like in his office or something, like working on a thesis or something. And like he would actually like take time to look at some of my early pages and stuff. And at this point, like I didn't even know like mini comics were a thing really. I like wasn't hip to it. I was just like such a Marvel DC fanboy. And like he would look at this stuff he would look at this stuff and really analyze it and give me some really good critique on how to improve my writing and expand out of it. But yeah, and they were like big pages. They were on Bristol board, 11 by 17. Wow. I would ink these things up and stuff. So that was a lot of the early comic stuff in art school for me.
Then how did you end up in Columbus? Are you originally from here?
I just kind of migrated here. I wanted to be like closer to my friends and stuff in the area. And you can't complain about the comic scene in Columbus. I think it's thriving, and I think it's like the spot to be. So that kind of drove me here. When back to art school a little bit, I didn't know a lot of cartoonists. Like I knew 2 people that made comics. And so it's really cool to me to be like in C3 now. And there's like a plethora of cartoonists, and there's cartoonists outside of C3 that are very active in the art community here. So it's all super cool.
How would you describe your art? Since we're talking about, you're working on stuff for the anthology and you have a bunch of other projects that we're going to talk about. So if somebody asked you, how would you describe the art style?
Eerie, mesmerizing, spooky, very graphic. I'm very influenced by Jaime Hernandez, Love and Rockets. It's one of my favorites. A lot of my early zines recently are all in black and white. I'm not saying I won't make colored versions, fingers crossed at some point, but yeah, I don't try to make my comics adult, but they just come out that way sometimes. I like horror stuff too. So,
well, I think that's a good thing that you find something. I don't want to say it makes it easier, but it's got to, right? If you're interested in something, you got an idea and you're flowing with it, whether it's adult or for kids or whatnot. I mean, am I right or am I wrong on that? Is that not how you operate?
Yeah, I'm keeping in mind with this new Shogun Bear book I'm making right now to like keep it open for kids. Like there's no swearing, like it's a very like A to B plot. It's really focused on the jokes. But some of my other work, I'm not afraid to like lean into, some heavier stuff, mostly violence. It's like, we got to get our automatopoeias in there. We got to get our kapows and our booms and our smash and all that good stuff if we're making comics, right?
Right. Well, let's talk about a couple of your projects here. The first one I'm going to mention is Murder Queen. Now, Murder Queen is a zine, correct? Or is it a mini comic?
Yes, it is. I got it right here. It's got a limited color palette that I was experimenting with. There's really only 3 colors. It's like 3 different shades of kind of pink and stuff.
Why'd you go that route?
I see a lot of people like Frank Cho and a lot of other illustrators have done this to just kind of simplify the color flow. I mean, like the more colors you introduce, the more complicated it becomes of what color things should be and like saving your swatches and stuff. And I just wanted to avoid that altogether. I think space was creeping up, and me and Johnny Hunter, were doing a lot of like co-working sessions where we were drawing together for like hours, getting stuff ready for space. And it was just one of those things where I was just like, you know what, this one's going to be the 3-color comic. and I didn't overthink it, and I just went for it. And I think it came out fine. It's fun, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's a unique look to it, and yeah, I was just curious as to what popped in your mind to go. I'm going to go with this different style and different coloring scheme, if you will, as opposed to just doing it. I'm sure the way that you've done with several of your other projects. In fact, you've mentioned one, Shogun Bear. So this one is the one that's a little bit more for kids, you said.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's very light. I got a copy here. I have like a lot of my books off to the side here to show them on camera. But it's Shogun Bear, and it's essentially he's a samurai polar bear. Now, I do want to make the point that Shogun Bear is not a furry. He's not an anamorphic bear. You know, he's literally a polar bear in a magic suit of armor. So, like, and then Yoza is his Watson to his Sherlock Holmes. So it's like there's a lot of jokes where Shogun Bear can't talk. He's literally a bear, so he just goes, "Whoa," you know, all the time. And then Yoza translates for him, and he's like, "Oh, Shogun said goes this way," and stuff. And it's you know, it's very light. It's very ridiculous, and I just kind of lean into the humor a lot and stuff. I like to. Also, on a side note, I like to just like play with values a lot. Like a lot of this is like the same sequence, but I'm just like playing with contrast of like taking shadows away and adding shadows, because light and shadow create form, and if you add and take away, you get different compositions. So I love playing with that stuff. Very high contrast.
So how did you come up with the concept for Shogun Bear?
Oh man, that is a loaded question. Weirdly enough, I was out getting coffee, and I would just bring my sketchbook with me, and I would draw. At that point, I was diving into stuff from my childhood for inspiration. So like a lot of like 90s action figures, because all that stuff's like online. You can just look at it. I was like, let me look at like some of the stuff maybe when I was talking about before when I was drawing Batman. Like, let me look at these kind of like weird action figures. So I made all these like weird sketches of like characters wearing weird suits of armor. And I think it was definitely like a riff on TMNT. I was like, oh, Shogun Bear, of course. I got to put a bear in a suit of samurai armor, you know. And I drew this sketch, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I there was something about it where I was just like, I don't think I'm going to get tired of drawing this character. And so it's my character is Todd McFarlane would say, it's my character, you know, like I want to put a dent in, you know. Okay. It's, you know, I'm going to have like multiple books of Shogun Bear. So whether people want it or not.
Well, let's talk about a couple of other projects here. How about Captain Devil?
Captain Devil was really inspired by Scott McCloud, and he has a thing called 24-hour comics, which I think is like a great exercise of like, let's take away the excuses, let's take away the restraints, and like try to make a comic book in 24 hours. And so that was like the challenge of it. It's like still my style, but it's like, it's very kinetic and it's very in the moment, because it's like I drew it in 24 hours. I even like etched the type in myself, you know, that's like my handwriting and stuff. And she's kind of, I'm not going to lie, she's kind of like a Boba Fett character. And I used a Boba Fett action figure for a lot of the poses, like as a reference and stuff. But it's like just a little sci-fi romp of this character. And it pushes the dialogue, and it like pushes you to make stuff I don't feel like you normally write. So, and then here's me on the back. My name's Carl Lucas. Welcome to my first 24-hour comic experience. But yeah, that was Captain Devil. Was I wanted to do a 24-hour comic, basically, and that's what happened.
All right, last two here for a moment. The House of Horrors and the Ramsey Tales. Can you give us a little summary of those two projects?
Okay. House of Horrors is Shogun Bear. Shogun Bear and House of Horrors. No, it's fine. It's totally fine. And I just want to get that straight for the viewers that might want to visit my website.
Which website is?
my website is carllucasdraws.com, and then yeah, you just that's my Instagram tag is
there you go. So I was gonna say this is a social media tag, but at lucas.carl. All right, so the Ramsey Tales.
Okay, so Ramsey Tales is just a compilation of comics I made about Chef Gordon Ramsay.
Why Gordon Ramsay?
Okay, I just find him to be funny. He's super funny, and the things that come out of his mouth, I mean, like, crack me up. There was one night where I made a cocktail. It was like, it had like grapefruit and like gin in it or something. And I was just watching like, oh man, I can't remember the name of it. Hell's Kitchen. I was watching Hell's Kitchen. And I'm just like, I'm just going to draw him. I'm just going to do something light and fun. And I'm just going to draw Ramsay real quick. So like I put him on pause for a second. I wrote the dialogue up, and then I'm trying to find the page here. So this was the first sketch I did. Okay. And it's just a quote of Ramsay just saying, he says, "A lack of integrity across the dish. Nothing authentic whatsoever." You know, it's just like one of those mean things Ramsay would say. And like, so originally I thought of like, okay, I'm just going to make this weird zine that's just like Gordon Ramsay out of context. So it's just like all these quotes with like no context of what's happening or what's going on, but it's just the Ramsay quotes. But as I kept going on it, I ended up making like a short story at the beginning where like they're actually in Hell's Kitchen and it's literally in hell and stuff. And I just made a 4-page story of that. I started adding like screen tones, like zip-a-tone. I started like turning it into an actual comic book of like Gordon Ramsay in hell. And then there was some experimental stuff. Like I drew Ramsay as a Dragon Ball Z character.
Okay.
And that's like the scene where Vegeta fights Goku in like the first season. But all these images, I drew them really big. They were like, 20 by 20, and I shrunk them down and put them together in this page. So like, I think zines and mini comics are cool for that, like to experiment and try things you wanted to try before, like the C3 anthology. I looked at the C3 anthology as like an opportunity to do something new and completely different that I haven't done before. And but yeah, and then one last thing about Ramsay's Tale. There's a great Legend of Zelda parody at the end where Gordon is journeying through Hyrule, and he encounters Gordon, the Deku Sprout, and he starts giving him quests and starts critiquing his cooking. And there's also a great character called Gordondorf, and it's really fun. So that's Ramsay's Tales.
Okay. First thing about Gordon Ramsay, I will say I'm not a fan of Hell's Kitchen, but Kitchen Nightmares.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it's at. Like I watch that show or repeats of that show or it's streaming or whatever, and I don't feel bad for any of those people. By the way, as a side note, I don't know what that says about my personality, but I'm like, you deserve this butt chewing that you're getting from Gordon Ramsay because you're a moron. You deserve this. And secondly, I think you should carry this around with you everywhere you go, just in case you run into Gordon Ramsay. You can go, I made a comic of you.
I might tag him online. I'll be honest, I just did the final print of it, like happy with and stuff. I did have a version at Space that I secretly threw on the giveaway table. I had 50 copies and I just threw them on the free table and walked away, and I didn't say anything. So it's been a secret launch of Ramsay Tales. I'm kind of weird and shy like that sometimes. I'm just like, I'm just going to throw these on this table.
Well, I think you told me about this project when I met you at the CXC kickoff party.
I don't remember, but...
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about Psychgeist.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that is my book with Luke Hare, who's been in the scene here for a while. Luke's a comic book writer, and he's he's very, he's very connected and stuff. He does a few podcasts himself. And yeah. So Zeitgeist, I actually, speaking of college, I met Luke Hare in college.
Oh,
he was in my writing class with Jeffrey Condren, who I was talking about earlier. And me and Luke just started meeting up, and we pitched ideas back and forth. And I told him to rewrite this and rewrite that. And I'm very fussy. I'm hard to work with. There's a reason most of my books are alone, because I'm just hard to work with. But we pulled it off. I think it's a fun 8-pager of this character. He's kind of like a shaman, and he goes to the netherworld, and he helps people with they have like demon viruses in their mind and stuff. It's very like high concept, kind of weird, but it's like psychics kind of.
Okay. You know what? I appreciate you're self-aware, that you admit that you're somewhat difficult to work with. I think that takes a great amount of honesty, man, if that's the case, because I'm sure it's easy for somebody to maybe say, well, there's this excuse or that excuse, but you're owning it, man.
I'm trying to be a team player, and I feel like C3 is not like me trying to be a team player, like working in a team setting and stuff. But I'm a very insular person. I had a teacher that said, art is a life of solitude, and I kind of agree with that. It kind of like lives with you and is made by you, but I don't know. I don't want to get into all the philosophy of that.
Okay, we'll save that for another time. Next time.
That's too heavy.
Yeah. For crying out loud, we were just talking about butter churns and Gordon Ramsay, so this is clearly not the philosophical, deep, meditative episode.
I know. Yeah, Tom Williams wrote, "Break out your proportion wheel." I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So enough said. All right, you said you were a Marvel and DC fanboy for a long time. So who are some of your favorite superheroes?
Oh, I love X-Men. I love X-Men. I love, of course I love Batman. Who doesn't love Batman? Batman's just fun to draw. Batman's great. Something recently I read was Chainsaw Man. Pretty into Chainsaw Man. You asked me, he's kind of a superhero. He's a manga superhero.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Yeah, favorite superhero though. That's tough. I'm a big Superman fan myself too. So yeah, I'll say those. Batman primarily.
What led you to the X-Men? Because a lot of people have that, like, the mutant storyline we didn't fit in. I also didn't fit in high school or whatever. Do you have a similar tale, or you just thought these people are awesome?
I don't feel that way, because like when I was a kid, X-Men the animated series was on TV on Fox, obviously. Like I was born in '89, so I'm in my 30s. So I used to think that Wolverine was just yellow Batman when I was a kid. Like I didn't know like Marvel and DC were separated. I was just like, oh, there's a yellow guy with pointed ears. And what made that even more confusing was the amalgamation books. The DC versus Marvel books were coming out, and they had the Dark Claw character. So like I just associated all those characters as the same thing. Later, I would learn, that's Wolverine and all of that. I just thought they were super cool. Like I thought the characters were cool. The storylines were fun. I think the first X-Men movie really cemented me as a fan, though. Just to answer your question. Sorry, I kind of.
No. I am looking up real quick because I haven't thought about those amalgam comics in forever.
Yeah.
And I have Assassins, which was like the Elektra Catwoman.
Yeah, I remember.
Mix up. I can't remember. I want to say it was Scott McDaniel that drew it.
Ooh.
I don't remember who drew it, because the story goes, anyways, I met that individual. I think it's Scott McDaniel. I met him at a Comic-Con, and he signed my copy, and he signed it John.
So cool.
stay away from girls like this. I was like, that's pretty righteous. I mean, that's
amazing. You know, I'm a big fan of Scott McDaniel myself. You know, his Nightwing run where he was on Nightwing was one of my first comics. You know, like my dad would take me to the comic store, and like that was the one I got to pick out. You know, and it was the issue where I wish I could remember the issue number, but it's like where Nightwing is fighting Deathstroke on the cover, and like Deathstroke is after Man-Bat, and he's like trying to capture Man-Bat and stuff. But that was Scott McDaniel, and I love those pages where he has all those like kinetic poses that all connect, like of like Nightwing like leaping across this. I mean, he had one of the first websites that had like information for young cartoonists, like starting out. Like I remember when I was a kid, like I was desperate for anything, like any like how to draw a book, anything that could tell me what to do. But he had like a little write-up on his website in the early 90s that was like, get a light table, these are the tools I use, and just like intro stuff that I don't think was available for everyone at the time.
Yeah, I'm 99% certain it was Scott McDaniel that wrote that book or created that book. But yeah, I haven't thought about those. Are there any other creators that you really admire and take inspiration from?
Oh, where to start? You know, of course, of course I love Chris Claremont. Like sometimes I would just like listen to Chris Claremont interviews because I love listening to him talk about the X-Men. He talks about it with like such passion, you know, like Kitty Pryde, like he calls her by her first name. He's like, well, Kitty wouldn't do that in this situation. Aurora, and, you know, he talks about them like they're real people, which I love. You know, he wrote the X-Men for 19 years. I think his run was legendary. Some other creators. Man, I am blanking really hard right now. I've really been getting into Darwin Cook a little bit more recently. Going back and listening to his interviews and stuff he did. I think that book New Frontier is a fantastic. I would put that in my top 5 DC books. New Frontier, where it's kind of like a new take on Justice League and stuff. Yeah, Darwin Cook, his Catwoman run. I mean, like,
his Catwoman one was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's very, very little there I have to complain about. I mean, I don't get tired of reading about comic creators. Like, you know, but just those two off the top of my head.
You know, I started reading Catwoman when Jim Ballant was the artist.
Yeah,
and then as soon as like I've always said, like the last when Ballant left and there was still like they still stretched the book out for another like 12 issues. I'm like, they should have just canceled it because it was just a rotating bullpen of different creators. And then when Darwin Cooks came out, I was a little leery. I was like, I don't know. But I'm thankfully I was very surprised that it was top notch. It was absolutely excellent and big fan of that. So it's a shame that we don't have Darwin Cook around more. You know,
it is a shame. He died super young. I think he was like 54 or something. But
yeah.
No, I think his work lives on. It speaks for itself. And
absolutely.
Elise Charretier is heavily influenced by Darwin Cook, and there's plenty of artists that are still influenced by him. So, and what a great creator.
All right, well, Carl, let's start to wrap things up here. I want to talk one more time about the Crowdfundr campaign. It is for C stands for, which is the anthology that the C3 organization has put together. Again, everyone's getting $5. All right, we've already hit that page count, that tier. Everyone's getting $5. I believe that we're super close to having $950 raised, in which everyone will get a page rate of $10. $1,550 will get everyone $15 page rate, and then anything over $1,550, which we can do, folks. We can do this. We can max this bad boy out. I mean, we're closing things down August 26th. That still gives you plenty of time. Plenty of time. All you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, is look down below. It's been scrolling the entire time that Carl and I have been chatting. That's all the information that you need if you want to go over and check it out. Again, it's going to scroll here real quick. C stands for Anthology over on Crowdfundr. tinyurl.com/C stands for. It'll support local Ohio artists, ladies and gentlemen. And no one's getting rich off this. So it's not a Ponzi scheme. All right. It's not a little bait and switch. All right. The money comes in, the money's going to go out to. Don't ruin this.
We're not scamming you.
Oh, I thought you said we're scamming you. I swear. I'm like, what are you doing? Don't ruin this.
No. I'm trying to be by the book here.
It's not a scam, is what Carl said.
It's not. Listen. It's not a scam.
That's right. It's only a scam if Carl calls your grandmother and tells her that you're in jail and she needs to wire $500 to Carl. That's a scam.
Yeah, if I call you and ask for $50, it's still for the crowdfunder.
But if it's $500, it's probably for him. He's just pocketing the cash.
Maybe. I can confirm nothing.
You wait. We're gonna get the Law and Order SVU team after you and find out where that $500 went. Anyways,
or the oh my god.
Anyways. Again, ladies and gentlemen, in all seriousness, I know we're having fun with it, but in all seriousness, this money goes back to the creative individuals to help out with lots of fees, tabling fees, workshops, supplies, et cetera, et cetera. You'll be doing a great job and a great thing supporting these fine folks. And yeah, just do it, folks. Seriously, there's the website right down below, the tiny URL. Go over, check it out, donate, and help us reach that goal of over $1,550. So, Carl, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Oh, you can find me at www.carllucasstraws.com. I have an online store with Shogun Bear right now. I'm going to be doing XPX next month, so maybe after that show, I will update my listing of like on that website. You can also find me on TikTok at Carl Lucas Draws. You can find me on Instagram at lucas.carl. On Facebook, I am Carl Lucas Art. And that should be enough to find me.
And you mentioned about CXC, Cartoon Crossroads Columbus, coming up real soon, actually. Sadly, time's going quick, man. It's going to be here September 26th through the 29th. If you don't know anything about it, just check out the website. I can't do it justice. I mean, I can't thoroughly explain how great that is. And, you know, as we all say here, and Carl, you gave your correct?
Yeah. One more thing I want to plug is the C3 Comic Book Reading Club. You can join us on the Fable app. You can join us on the C3 Discord. And also there's a ton of other great artists on the Discord. We're all talking about comics. We're all sharing our thoughts. It's just a big thought experiment of like local creators in Columbus all sharing their work and collaborating together. So, you know, check out the C3 Discord, check out the Comic Book Reading Club.
Okay. And as I wrap up here real quick, pvdcast.com is where you can find my personal podcasting project, Facebook, IG, Threads. It's at PVDcast. I'm also right here, as you see, my X handle is at PVDMVP. So if you like what you've been watching or listening to, let me know. And with that, Carl, I'm going to let you get going, man. So thanks for sitting down and chatting, man.
No, thank you, John. Thanks for having me, and thanks for hosting C3. I'm really grateful, and I hope everybody gives to the crowdfunder, or at the very least checks out the Discord or the conversations. You know,
Tom reminded us 99.9% it's not a scam. So
that's right. See, we have Tom Williams' word, you know, that this is not a scam. So, I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want from Columbus Comics? I mean, like really.
Exactly. Folks, check it out. Crowdfundr. You know where to find it. It's right down below. I'm going to give one final plug to it. Do it. Let's get up over that 1,550 mark. And with that, we're going to get on out of here. Right, Carl?
All right. Yeah.
All right,
bye, everyone.
And I will chat at each and every one of you guys later.